Kurt Bardella is actually nodding along to something I'm saying. But Americans, and scaring Americans about Trump right now, really is Biden's only hope. With us now, Scott Tranter, head of data science for Decision Desk HQ, and the man nodding along, Democratic strategist Kurt Bardella, also NewsNation contributor. This is what I can't figure out. Who was not already voting for Joe Biden, or a better way of putting it, who was going to vote for Donald Trump yesterday, and today saw Joe Biden offer this plan, this executive order, still could be challenged in court, and said, you know what, now I'm voting for Biden.
Well, maybe someone who right now is undocumented and therefore not eligible to vote, who because of this may now be able to vote and therefore will...
I don't think they can vote in this election under this.
Well, in that case, then no one. But I think it's about getting the base to turn out. Like after the executive orders talking about immigration enforcement that many on the left were unhappy about, this throws them a bone to kind of mollify them, give them a little, hey, look, I'm doing something that you guys should like. Keep the enthusiasm a little bit higher, because, again, this election is going to be decided by who can get their side to turn out. If there is a drop in their base on either side, that's the ball game.
Is it really a base election, or is it who can convince swing voters that are upset about inflation and immigration and crime, Scott, to vote?
Well, if its turnout's less than 2020, it's a base election. 2020 was an extremely high turnout election. We don't expect it to be that high, so then it is, as you said, it's getting those small slices of voters to swing your way. Voters like independents, voters like suburban women, voters like Hispanic and African-American voters. All these are the contested segments that both campaigns are going after.
All right, so Geraldo was on with Elizabeth Vargas earlier about this issue about deporting groups of Americans. 63% of Americans say they want mass deportation of every illegal immigrant. 53% of Americans who are Hispanic agree with that. Here's Geraldo.
When the first group is rounded up and brought to a detention camp, then let's poll the American people on whether or not they think it's appropriate. When husbands are snatched from their family bedroom, and the children are crying about daddy, who's been here for over 10 years and has worked in the community, is known, everyone knows Jose, he's this, he's that, he's our neighbor. Well, let's see if that ruthlessness, that harshness, that selfishness will sustain.
All right, so there's a lot of emotion on this. I think he has a point when it comes to deporting a guy who's lived here for 15 years and is married to an American and has 2 kids and on and on. The flip side of that argument, right, is the Ecuadorian migrant charged with raping a 13-year-old. Christian Giovanni Inga Landi, 25, from Ecuador, charged with rape, sexual abuse, robbery, kidnapping, possession of a weapon, menacing, unlawful imprisonment. And not only that, was then chased down and beaten and detained by Good Samaritans. So what is a more powerful motivator, Scott, when we poll this? Is it fear of crime from these mass waves of undocumented, unknown military-age males, or the heartstrings of, to use Geraldo, Jose being deported?
Interestingly enough, it's both. And it is a timing thing, right? Like, we see crime linked with immigration, especially. Whether it's right or wrong is a different question. People are perceiving that to be linked, and crime is an issue that people perceive to be a top 5 issue. We can argue about the stats and whether it is or not, but this is what people perceive. As Geraldo pointed out, we saw this on Ilian Gonzalez, 25, 30 years ago. There's a lot of people.
Were you even alive 25 or 30?
I'm a political nerd, man. I was watching that stuff. But
this was the kid who was brought from Cuba to the United States by one parent and then returned to Cuba.
And it was a critical issue in the 2000 election, and simply because of what side you're on and whether you deport him or bring him back. And as Geraldo pointed out, when you have those images, it does evoke it evokes an emotion, and it may change people's minds. But those aren't the images right now. The images right now are the things about the crime and the economy and those types of things.
Right, and the number of women who have been killed by illegal immigrants, Laken Riley, Rachel Moran, others. Kurt, how does the president get a win on the border, not a sort of hold the line, I'm just going to start handing out freebies?
I don't think that there is a, quote, win, frankly, to be had politically for Biden or Democrats on the border. I think that this is more about trying to get as close to just net zero as possible so that it's not such a massive advantage for Republicans. Because the way that it currently is, that could be the difference in the election. But if they can just move the needle just ever so slightly to make it less of an advantage and then fight the fight on a train they feel better about politically, like abortion, women's rights, equality, et cetera, that's probably their best chance. If the election is about immigration at the border, Democrats are going to lose.
Right. If it's about that, and we see the polling, right? In 2020, Biden was +7 on this. That was kids in cages, or
right.
at least the reminiscence of kids in cages. The media certainly helped Democrats on that. Now Trump is +11. The images of crime and everything help. So, Scott, people tell us consistently that immigration is the number 1, number 2 issue for them, right? And it's become a proxy for all of these things. Donald Trump is +11 on immigration. What is the delta between how far, +7, how far he is up on, quote, the issues that matter versus how far he is up in the polls, which is scant to 0?
Yeah, no, I think, look, it's a couple more factors in that. In other words, as you pointed out, he is ahead in immigration, which is a top 3 issue. He is slightly ahead in the economy and jobs, which is a number 1 issue, slightly ahead in inflation, which is a top 3 issue there. But Joe Biden has the benefit of an incumbency. And so the fact that Donald Trump is ahead now slightly, as you point out, and that's what our forecast is, 56% chance likely to win, basically a coin flip, that tells you that the incumbency is being outweighed by the issues. And look, 4 or 5.
You say 56%, though. Yeah. They build casinos in Vegas. Off of 56% odds. So
correct.
If you want to do that, that's where you're at. This is Donald Trump talking about how, and I think there's an argument to be made here, right? That every time the news gets out and the word gets out that there is a amnesty, there is a pass, there is a incentive then to come to America. Take a listen.
And that's what's happening. They hear about all of the things that are coming in. And don't kid yourself, the ones that are hurt the most, the black population, the Hispanic population, and you know what else? Who else is hurt badly? Unions, because unions are not able to compete with this.
All right. Kurt, how do Democrats get around the situation that's very real, that the things that play to the progressive base, which this does, and the activist base, does not play to working class voters that even of various demographic groups, blacks, Hispanics in particular, should be their voters?
Well, I think you have to look at the fact that we have seen now for multiple election cycles, Donald Trump Republicans go on the immigration is bad, they're taking your jobs, they're killing your women, they're criminals. And you know what? Despite the overwhelming polling lead that they have had on that issue and how Biden's been underwater, in the midterms we saw, it didn't matter. We've seen in special election after special election, it didn't matter. We have seen in swing states, it didn't matter because other issues are showing up at the polls, maybe not in polling, but at the polls and in the turnout that supersede immigration.
You're calling your buddy out on this. All right. Good to see you, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
As always.